My birthday prank backfired. It ended our relationship forever. Hi Reddit, I'm Jess, and this is my first time posting here. I'm shaking as I type this because my life has completely unraveled, and I don't know how to piece it back together. The cursor blinks on my screen like a metronome counting down the seconds of my sanity. I need advice, perspective, anything, because right now, I feel like I've lost everything. My boyfriend of 6 years, Mark, is gone, and it's all because of a stupid prank I pulled on my birthday. I thought it would be funny, a harmless little jab to shake things up. But it backfired in a way I never saw coming, and now I'm drowning in regret that feels as vast and endless as the ocean. Mark and I were solid, or at least I thought we were. We met during our senior year of college at a mutual friend's Halloween party. He was dressed as Clark Kent, just a button-up shirt with the Superman logo peeking through, and those thick-rimmed glasses that somehow made his green eyes stand out even more. I was a half-hearted zombie cheerleader, already 3 drinks in. He approached me with this quiet confidence, handed me a bottle of water, and said I might need it later. He was right, I did. That was Mark, always anticipating needs before they arose, always one step ahead in the thoughtfulness department. He's always been the calm one, the guy who keeps his cool no matter what. Steady, reliable, the kind of person who makes you feel safe. When my car broke down at 2 a.m. in the pouring rain, he showed up with an umbrella, a thermos of hot chocolate, and 0 complaints. When I got passed over for that promotion I'd been eyeing for months, he listened to me rant for hours, then quietly presented a handwritten list of all the reasons I was incredible at my job. I loved that about him, that unwavering steadiness, but over time, I started feeling restless. Our relationship was comfortable, predictable, and maybe a little too routine. We'd settled into this quiet rhythm: work, Netflix, takeout, repeat. And while it wasn't bad, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I wanted a spark, a jolt, something to remind me why we were together. Every day blended into the next. Weekdays were a blur of alarm clocks, quick goodbye kisses, and texts about who would pick up dinner. Weekends were movie marathons on our gray sectional couch that still had a mysterious stain from when we first moved in together 3 years ago. We'd talk about traveling, Japan in the spring, maybe a road trip down the California coast. But we never booked tickets, never set dates. It was always someday, and when we have more money, and after this project at work. Life was happening in the future tense, and the present felt like a waiting room. It wasn't like I didn't love Mark. I did. He was sweet, thoughtful, always there when I needed him. He remembered every anniversary, not just of our first date, but of silly little milestones like the first time I made him spaghetti, which was a disaster. I burned the garlic bread and oversalted the pasta, but he ate every bite and asked for seconds. He kept a small notebook in his nightstand where he jotted down things I mentioned wanting, just so he could surprise me with them months later. But 6 years is a long time, and I guess I started wondering if this was all there was. I didn't say anything to him about it. Looking back, I should have, but instead, I let that restlessness fester. It built up quietly, like pressure in a bottle, and I didn't realize how much it was affecting me until it exploded on my 29th birthday. That's where things started going wrong, so terribly, irreversibly wrong. I need to go back a bit to explain how I ended up here. About 6 months ago, I started a new job at a marketing firm. That's where I met Ryan. He was everything Mark wasn't: impulsive, bold, and constantly pushing boundaries. Where Mark would carefully consider all angles before making a decision, Ryan would dive in headfirst and figure things out along the way. Our friendship started innocently enough. We were assigned to the same project, and I admired his creativity and confidence. He made work exciting in a way it hadn't been before. He noticed things about me that I thought had gone unnoticed, the way I'd tap my pen when I was thinking, how I always twisted my hair when I was stressed. Small things that made me feel seen. The first time our relationship crossed a line was after a late meeting. We'd been working on a pitch, riding the high of creative energy, and when everyone else left, we stayed behind. One moment we were laughing about something trivial, and the next he was standing too close, looking at me in a way that made my heart race. I should have stepped back. I should have remembered Mark, remembered the 7 years we'd built together, but I didn't. It was just a kiss, I told myself afterward. A moment of weakness. It wouldn't happen again. But it did happen again, and again. Secret meetings in empty conference rooms, text messages we both knew we should delete, lingering touches that felt electric. I told myself it wasn't really cheating because we never went all the way, never spent the night together. I was living in denial, creating arbitrary lines I wouldn't cross while trampling over the most important boundary of all, loyalty to Mark. With Ryan, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. He made decisions without hesitation, planned spontaneous lunch dates, sent flowers to my desk just because. All the little things I wished Mark would do. I started comparing them constantly, focusing on everything Mark wasn't rather than everything he was. The weeks leading up to my birthday were filled with subtle hints from Mark that he was planning something special. He'd close laptop tabs when I walked into the room, take mysterious phone calls on the balcony, and ask oddly specific questions about my schedule. I allowed myself to get excited, to imagine him whisking me away for a weekend trip, or maybe even proposing. That's where my mind went, not because I necessarily wanted a proposal, but because it would be something big, something life-changing, something to shake us out of this comfortable rut. However, while Mark was planning for something good, I decided to play a prank on him. The idea for the prank came from a dumb TikTok trend I'd seen while mindlessly scrolling during my lunch break. People testing their partners to see how they'd react. Some girl had pretended to break up with her boyfriend, filming his panic before revealing it was all a joke. The comments were split between those calling it cruel and those finding it hilarious. At the time, I'd sided with the latter. I thought it'd be hilarious to mess with Mark, to see him squirm a little. He's always been so unflappable, and I wanted to shake him out of that calm shell, even just for a night. My best friend Tara was in on it. She's the wild one who's always pushing me to do crazy stuff. The friend who convinces you to get bangs at 2 a.m. or book a spontaneous trip to Vegas. We've been friends since middle school, bonded by a shared detention for passing notes in Mrs. Peterson's class. She convinced me it'd be the perfect birthday stunt, a story we'd laugh about later. So we planned it. I'd pretend I was breaking up with him in front of our friends, right in the middle of my birthday party, and then reveal it was a joke. Simple, right? What could go wrong? The night started off great. We were at our apartment, music blasting, drinks flowing, about a dozen of our closest friends packed into the living room. The place smelled like vanilla candles and the spinach dip Mark had made from scratch, his mom's recipe that everyone always raved about. I'd spent the afternoon getting ready, straightening my hair, applying the new eyeshadow palette Mark had given me as an early birthday gift, slipping into that dark green dress he loved. Mark had spent the whole day making it special, balloons in shades of purple and silver, my favorites, hung from the ceiling, a chocolate cake with raspberry filling he baked himself, remembering that I'd once mentioned it was what my grandma used to make, even a playlist of my favorite songs from different periods of my life. The first song that played was Mr. Brightside, the song that was playing when we first kissed 6 years ago. He's thoughtful like that, always putting in effort without making a big deal out of it. I remember watching him set out the food, smiling at me from across the room, and feeling this weird mix of love and irritation, like why couldn't he ever surprise me with something wild, instead of just being nice? The party was in full swing by 9 p.m. Our small apartment was filled with laughter and the clink of glasses. Mark's brother, Jamie, was telling that story about their disastrous camping trip from last summer, the one where Mark fell into the lake trying to save a duckling. Our college friends, Zoe and Peter, were arguing about which season of that zombie show was the best. My coworker, Leah, was mixing drinks in the kitchen, showing off the bartending skills from her college job. It all felt so normal, so expected, the same people, the same stories, the same dynamics. And there was Mark, making sure everyone had enough to eat, refilling drinks, being the perfect host, the perfect boyfriend. As the night went on, I got more buzzed, each vodka cranberry making the prank seem like a better idea. The slight dizziness, the warmth spreading through my limbs, the loosening of my usual inhibitions, it all contributed to a false sense of confidence. Tara kept egging me on from across the room, making exaggerated winking motions and mouthing "do it" whenever our eyes met. "Do it now," she whispered, appearing beside me and shoving another shot into my hand. The tequila burned my throat, but it fueled my courage. I was nervous, but the alcohol made me bold. I waited until Mark had just finished telling a story about how we met, the room warm with laughter and nostalgia. I stood up, slightly unsteady on my feet, and clinked my glass with a fork to get everyone's attention. The room gradually quieted, curious faces turning toward me. "Hey guys, I've got something to say," I started, my voice louder than I meant it to be, echoing slightly in the sudden silence. Mark looked up from the couch, curious, that little half smile on his face like he thought I was about to thank him or something. There was a small smudge of chocolate on his chin from the cake, and for a split second I almost abandoned the whole idea, but Tara nudged me and I remembered the plan. "Mark," I said, turning to him, "I can't do this anymore. I think we need to break up." The room went dead silent. You could hear the ice clinking in someone's glass, the distant bass of music from the apartment below, the soft hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. Mark's smile vanished like a light being switched off, and his face just froze. His eyes, usually so warm and expressive, turned blank and unfocused. I kept going, laying it on thick for the drama. Something about how I needed space, how I wasn't happy, how I'd been feeling trapped for months. The words tumbled out, each one sounding hollow and wrong in my ears even as I said them. I thought I'd see him laugh or roll his eyes, maybe call me out for being ridiculous. But he didn't. He just stared at me, his eyes wide, like I'd punched him in the gut. I expected him to say something, anything, but he didn't. The silence stretched on, uncomfortable and heavy. I noticed Jamie straighten up, confusion and anger flashing across his face. Zoe's mouth was hanging open slightly, while Peter studied his shoes intently. Tara nudged me, giggling under her breath, and I forced a grin. "Kidding!" I shouted, throwing my arms up, trying to break the tension. "It's a prank! Happy birthday to me, right?" I laughed, a high, nervous sound that seemed to bounce off the walls. I waited for everyone else to join in, to release the collective breath they'd been holding. A few people chuckled awkwardly, relief mingling with discomfort, but the vibe was off. Way off. Like a record scratch in the middle of a song. Mark didn't laugh. He didn't even move at first. He just kept looking at me, his expression shifting from shock to something else, something cold and distant that I'd never seen before. His jaw tightened, a muscle twitching in his cheek, and then he stood up, the motion stiff and deliberate. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch, slipped it on with methodical precision, and walked toward the door. His movements were mechanical, like someone operating his body from a distance. I thought he was playing along at first, doing some dramatic exit for effect. I even called after him, "Oh, come on, don't be like that." The words sounded petulant and childish even to my own ears. But he didn't turn back. He didn't say a single word. The door slammed behind him with such finality that it made me flinch. The party just stopped. The music kept playing, some upbeat pop song that suddenly felt totally wrong for the moment, but the energy had been sucked out of the room. Everyone stared at me, expressions ranging from confusion to outright disapproval. Jamie muttered, "What the fuck, Jess?" before grabbing his coat and heading out, presumably to find his brother. Tara muttered something about how he'd get over it, that he was being dramatic. I tried to brush it off, keep the night going, pushing drinks into people's hands and turning up the music, but it was like trying to revive a corpse. The party was dead. People started trickling out, making excuses about work or being tired or early morning commitments. By midnight, it was just me and Tara cleaning up the mess. Empty cups strewn across surfaces, half-eaten slices of cake abandoned, decorations that now seemed garish and sad rather than festive. "He'll be back," Tara assured me, tossing crumpled napkins into a trash bag. "Guys like Mark don't just walk away. He's probably driving around the block to cool off." I nodded, wanting to believe her, but something deep in my gut told me this was different. I'd never seen Mark like that before, so shut down, so cold. It scared me, but I pushed the feeling away. I told myself he'd come back. Mark always came back. After every argument we'd ever had, which weren't many, he was the one to extend the olive branch, to find a way to make things right. He wasn't the type to hold a grudge. He'd sulk for a bit, then we'd talk it out. But hours passed, and he didn't. I texted him, "Where are you? It was just a joke." But he didn't reply. I called, and it went straight to voicemail. His familiar greeting, "Hey, it's Mark, leave a message," felt like a punch to the chest. By 3 a.m., I was pacing the apartment, replaying the whole thing in my head. The balloon strings hung limp from the ceiling, and the cake sat half-eaten on the counter, the frosting beginning to harden and crack. Had I gone too far? Was he really that mad? I didn't sleep that night, waiting for the sound of his key in the lock. It never came. The sun rose, painting the living room in shades of orange and gold, highlighting the mess from the night before. The apartment felt eerily quiet, the kind of silence that rings in your ears. Mark's coffee mug, the one with the chipped handle that he refused to replace because it was perfectly broken in, sat empty on the kitchen counter. The book he'd been reading was still on the nightstand, a bookmark positioned about halfway through. His toothbrush stood next to mine in the bathroom, a mundane sight that somehow made my chest ache. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a fight. This was something bigger, something I couldn't undo with a simple apology and a promise to do better. This was a fracture in the foundation of us, and I had caused it with my own careless swing at the structure. It all started unraveling from there. The next day, I found out from a mutual friend that Mark had crashed at his brother's place. Jamie lived across town, in a cramped one-bedroom apartment that barely had room for a couch, let alone an extra person. The thought of Mark sleeping on that lumpy pullout, staring at Jamie's water-stained ceiling, made my stomach twist. I tried calling again, leaving voicemails that ranged from casual, "Hey, can we talk?" to desperate, "Please, just tell me you're okay, I'm worried about you." Nothing. Complete radio silence. I'd never seen him shut me out like this before, and it freaked me out. Mark was the guy who'd text me back within 5 minutes, no matter what. Now, it was like he'd vanished from the planet, leaving behind only his physical belongings as proof he'd ever existed. I kept telling myself it was fine, that he just needed space. We'd had disagreements before, like when I forgot his mom's birthday, or when he worked through our anniversary dinner because of a deadline. But those were bumps, minor irritations that faded quickly. This felt different. The days dragged on, and the silence got louder. I started noticing little things, how his running shoes were still by the door, the blue ones with the frayed laces he'd refused to replace despite my nagging. How his favorite green hoodie still hung on the back of the dining chair. How his toothbrush was still in the bathroom, the bristles slightly splayed from how hard he brushed. It was like he'd left in a hurry, not planning to stay gone. That gave me hope at first, like maybe he'd cool off and come home. But then I saw his brother post a photo on Instagram, Mark at a bar, surrounded by bottles of craft beer and plates of wings, laughing with some guys I didn't recognize. The timestamp said it was posted only minutes earlier. He didn't look like a guy who'd just been dumped in front of everyone. He didn't look devastated or broken. He looked fine. Better than fine. Happy. That's when the panic really set in, a cold, slithering feeling that wrapped around my chest and squeezed. I started digging, asking around, trying to figure out what was going on. Our friends were weird about it. Some avoided my texts entirely. Others gave vague answers like, "He's just taking some time," or "Maybe give him space." Zoe, who I thought would be straight with me, just said, "You really hurt him, Jess," before changing the subject. Tara told me I was overreacting, that Mark was too soft to leave me over a prank. "He'll be back," she said, like it was a fact, sipping her latte and scrolling through her phone while I spiraled. Guys like that always come back. But I wasn't so sure. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how humiliating that night must have been for him. I'd made him the punchline in front of everyone we knew, and for what? A cheap laugh? A fleeting moment of power? The thrill of seeing him rattled for once? A week after the party, I got a text from him, just one line. "I'm coming by to get my stuff tomorrow." My heart sank, the words blurring on the screen as tears filled my eyes. This wasn't supposed to happen. None of this was supposed to happen. I begged him to talk, to meet me somewhere, anywhere. But he didn't respond. The silence was deafening, a wall I couldn't scale or break through. The next day, he showed up with his brother, and I watched from the couch as he packed up his clothes, his books, and his stupid little coffee maker I used to tease him about. He looked different somehow, his posture straighter, his movements precise and efficient. He didn't look at me, didn't say a word beyond a quiet thanks when I handed him a box of his vinyl records, the collection he'd started in high school and had grown meticulously over the years. His brother shot me a glare, though, like I was the worst person alive. And maybe I was. When he left, I broke down. I didn't think it had hit me that hard, but seeing him walk out with everything he owned made it real. 6 years gone because of one dumb night. I kept replaying his face from the party, the shock, the hurt, the way he just shut down. I'd wanted to shake him up, but I didn't expect him to take it so literally, to just leave, to pack up his life and walk away without a backward glance. The empty spaces he left behind were everywhere, gaps on the bookshelf, empty hangers in the closet, the blank spot on the wall where his framed concert poster used to hang. It was like living with a ghost, the negative space more present than anything solid. The days after that were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The appetite I'd always taken for granted vanished, leaving me picking at food without tasting it. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by dreams of Mark walking away over and over, never looking back. I'd wake up reaching for him, only to find his side of the bed cold and untouched. The apartment felt like a ghost town. Every corner had some memory of us. The couch where we'd binge shows until 2 a.m., his arm around me, my head on his chest. The kitchen where he'd cook breakfast on Sundays, singing off-key to whatever playlist he'd curated that week. The bedroom where we'd talk until the early hours, planning futures that now would never happen. I kept waiting for him to call, to say he'd overreacted, but he didn't. Instead, I started hearing things through the grapevine. Mark was different now, going out more, hitting the gym, even picking up new hobbies like rock climbing. Rock climbing. The guy who used to hate heights, who'd get queasy on the second floor of the mall, was out scaling walls, and I was stuck here, drowning in takeout containers and self-pity. I tried to keep it together, pulling myself through the motions of life, showering, going to work, responding to texts, but the guilt was eating me alive. I'd humiliated him, sure, but it wasn't just that. I'd been restless for months, maybe years, and instead of talking to him, instead of being honest about my feelings and fears, I'd let it build up until it exploded in the worst way possible. I started wondering if the prank wasn't just a prank. Maybe it was me testing him, pushing him to see if he'd fight for us. And when he didn't, when he walked away instead, it broke something in me I didn't know could break. That's when Tara dropped a bomb on me. We were grabbing coffee at our usual spot, the little cafe around the corner with the uncomfortable wooden chairs and the best almond croissants in the city. I was mid-sip when she casually mentioned she'd seen Mark out with someone, a girl. The coffee scalded my throat as I choked on it. Just a friend, probably, she added, but the way she said it made my stomach twist. I pressed her for details, and she admitted it looked flirty, smiling, leaning in, the kind of stuff Mark used to do with me. I felt sick, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. It had only been a few weeks, and he was already moving on. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Mark wasn't the type to jump into something new. He'd always been cautious, deliberate. But maybe I didn't know him as well as I thought. Maybe the Mark I knew was just one version of him, and now he was becoming someone else, someone stronger, someone who didn't need me. I spiraled after that, my mind creating elaborate scenarios where Mark and this mystery girl were laughing about me, about how pathetic I was, about how he'd dodged a bullet. I stalked his socials, well, his friends' socials, since he'd blocked me, and saw more evidence. Photos of him at bars, at the gym, with people I didn't know. He looked good too, happier, sharper, like he'd shed some weight he didn't even need to lose. Meanwhile, I was a mess, crying into my wine, replaying every mistake I'd made, my hair unwashed, my eyes perpetually puffy. I kept asking myself, had I pushed him too far? Was the prank just the final straw in a relationship I'd been neglecting for longer than I'd admit? The real kicker came a month later. I ran into his sister Carly at the grocery store, in the cereal aisle of all places. She'd always liked me, always included me in family stuff, but now she looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. It was through her I knew that Mark knew about my affairs with Ryan. He had heard it all from a mutual friend who knew him and Ryan. "You really messed up, Jess," she said, her voice cold enough to freeze the milk in my cart. "He's done with you. Like, done." She told me he'd been hurt before, not by me, but by an ex years ago who'd cheated, and my prank and my cheating hit that same nerve. I had told him I would never hurt him, and yet I did the same thing his ex had done. "He thought you were different," she said, "but you proved you weren't. He loved you enough to stay while you were cheating, hoping for you to change, but you were just another cheap lady." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there among the Cheerios and Cap'n Crunch, feeling like the floor was caving in. I hadn't known that Mark knew about Ryan. I felt I was discreet enough. And about his ex that had hurt him, I didn't really know. Mark didn't talk about his past much, and I'd never pushed. Now I wished I had. Maybe then I would have understood why my stupid prank cut so deep, why it wasn't just a joke to him, but a confirmation of his worst fears. That night I sat on the couch with a bottle of wine and wrote him a letter. Not to send, just to get it out. I apologized, told him I hadn't meant to hurt him, that I'd been an idiot who didn't know what she had until it was gone. I told him about the restlessness, about how I'd mistaken comfort for boredom, stability for stagnation. I cried until my eyes burned, the tears making the ink run on the paper, but it didn't change anything. The letter joined a growing pile of unsent apologies, and Mark remained gone. A ghost I couldn't exorcise, a wound that wouldn't heal. He was gone, and I was the one who'd pushed him out the door with both hands. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. It's been 2 weeks since my first post, and I'm barely holding it together. Every day feels like a new gut punch, and I don't know how much more I can take. The apartment feels both empty and suffocating. His absence fills every room like smoke. I keep finding things he left behind. A lone sock under the bed, a receipt in a jacket pocket, a forgotten charger cable coiled like a snake in the drawer. Each discovery is like reopening a wound just as it starts to scab over. I keep thinking it can't get worse, but it does, and I'm starting to wonder if this is my life now, just a series of consequences I can't outrun. Mark's moved on, and I mean really moved on. I found out through a friend that he's dating someone new, officially. Her name's Emily, and apparently she's a coworker he'd known for a while. I couldn't stop myself. I looked her up online, scrolling through her public photos until my eyes ached from the blue light of my screen. She's pretty, outdoorsy, the kind of girl who posts hiking pics and inspirational quotes about living your best life and embracing the journey. Her Instagram grid is full of sunsets and mountain vistas and perfectly arranged brunch plates. Everything I'm not right now. People say she's good for him, that she's helping him heal. Heal from what? From me? I'm the one who's broken here, curled up on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., but he's the one getting sympathy, the one everyone's rallying around like he survived some terrible ordeal. Maybe he did. Maybe I was the terrible ordeal. He's thriving too. Friends keep telling me how great he's doing. New haircut, new clothes, new energy. He's even planning a trip with this Emily girl, some weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin I saw hinted at on Instagram. A photo of hiking boots and a packed backpack with the caption, "Weekend adventures ahead, #blessed." It made me physically ill. That was supposed to be our thing. We'd talked about a cabin trip for years, pinned locations, discussed which season would be best. But we never went. We always found reasons to postpone. Work was too busy, the timing wasn't right, maybe next month. And now he's going with her, making our someday her today. Meanwhile, I can't even get out of bed some days. The apartment is a mess, dishes piled up, laundry everywhere, takeout containers creating a miniature skyline on the coffee table, and I don't care. I keep replaying that night, the look on his face when I said it, the way he walked out. I wanted a reaction, and I got one, just not the one I expected. I wanted drama, excitement, something to break the monotony, and instead, I broke us. The worst part is the loneliness. I didn't realize how much Mark filled my life until he was gone. Our friends have picked sides, and most of them chose him. I get it. He's the victim here. But it still hurts to see group chats go quiet when I enter, to get left out of plans I used to be automatically included in. I ran into one of them at the store, Zoe, who used to be as much my friend as Mark's. She barely made eye contact, examining a head of lettuce like it held the secrets of the universe. "He's happier now," she said after an awkward silence, like that was supposed to comfort me. It didn't. It just made me feel like a monster, like someone who had been holding him back all this time. I wanted to scream that it wasn't supposed to be like this, that I just wanted a spark, not a wildfire that would consume everything, but I didn't. I just nodded and walked away, leaving my half-filled cart abandoned in the produce section. Reddit, I'm lost. How do I live with this? How do I stop hating myself for ruining everything? I just want to go back, but I can't, and it's killing me. Update. Hey Reddit, this might be my last post. It's been a month since this all started, and I'm at the end of my rope. The life I had with Mark is gone, and I don't recognize myself anymore. My reflection in the mirror is a stranger. Hollowed cheeks, dark circles under bloodshot eyes, a perpetual frown that's starting to leave lines. I've lost weight, but not in a good way. My clothes hang off me like I'm a scarecrow. Every day is a fight to keep going, and I'm not sure I'm winning. Mark and Emily are serious now. I heard they're moving in together, 6 weeks after he left me. 6 years with me, and he's ready to start over that fast. The news hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me as I stood in the middle of my living room. The phone pressed to my ear as a well-meaning friend delivered the update I hadn't asked for. 6 years of building a life together, of inside jokes and shared dreams, and the comfortable rhythm of two people who know each other down to the bone, and he's already packing his toothbrush for someone else's bathroom. Friends say he's never been happier, that she's the one. I saw a photo of them online, at some rooftop bar I'd never been to, drinks with paper umbrellas and garnishes that looked too complicated to eat. He's smiling, really smiling, in a way I hadn't seen in years. Eyes crinkled at the corners, dimples showing, no hint of the reserve he'd developed over time with me. It hit me like a truck. I'd spent so long wanting more from him, and now someone else is getting it. I can't stop crying over it, even though I know I don't deserve to. Even though I know this is entirely my fault. I've lost more than just him. My social circle's gone. People either ghosted me or outright told me they're done. The group text that used to light up my phone all day is silent. The weekend brunches, the movie nights, the impromptu happy hours, all gone, replaced by Instagram stories I'm not part of. Tagged photos that feel like deliberate reminders of what I've lost. Tara and I aren't speaking. She said I was too depressing to be around, that my negativity was bringing her down. 6 years of friendship, gone in a text message that ended with, "Take care of yourself," as if she ever cared how I was doing. My family's disappointed. My mom keeps asking why I'd throw away a good guy like Mark, why I couldn't just be happy with what I had. I don't have an answer that doesn't make me sound like a selfish, entitled child. Work's a mess, too. I can barely focus, staring at spreadsheets until the numbers blur into meaningless patterns. My boss pulled me aside to ask if I'm okay, concern etched into her usually stern features. I'm not, but I lied and said I was, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Speaking of work, Ryan started ignoring me. His attention shifted to another lady in the office. The apartment's unbearable. I see him everywhere. The dent in the couch from where he sat, the empty spot on the counter where his keys used to land, the half of the closet that now echoes with his absence. I tried moving stuff around, rearranging furniture to create a space that doesn't scream, "Mark was here," but it doesn't help. The ghost of us lingers in every corner. I keep thinking about that night, how I laughed while he stood there broken, how I wanted to shake things up, to feel something different, and instead I broke everything. I wanted him to fight, to react, and he did, just not how I thought. He walked away, and now he's gone forever, building a new life with someone who appreciates what I took for granted. I've been going over every moment, every chance I had to stop this. I could have told him I was restless, worked on us together instead of letting it fester until it poisoned everything. I could have skipped the prank, kept my mouth shut, found a healthier way to address my dissatisfaction. But I didn't. I pushed him and he left, and now he's better off while I'm stuck here, drowning in what-ifs and regrets that taste like ash. I regret it all, the restlessness, the prank, the way I took him for granted. I loved him, and I didn't see it until he was gone, until the space he occupied was empty and cold. I don't know if I can fix this. He's moved on, and I'm a ghost in my own life, haunting the rooms where we used to live. Part of me wants to reach out, apologize, beg for closure, but I know he'd just shut me down. The Mark I knew is gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone I helped create.